Emma clutched Lily against her chest as the apartment walls trembled from the slam of the door. Daniel's voice had echoed moments earlier, sharp with rage and betrayal, cutting through the fragile calm she had fought so hard to protect. Lily buried her face in Emma's shoulder, trembling, while Emma's own heart pounded against her ribs like a warning bell. She whispered, "It's okay, baby, I've got you," but her words felt fragile, breaking apart in the silence that followed. Outside, the faint wail of sirens carried on the night air, blending with the sound of Daniel's footsteps fading into the distance. Emma's throat tightened, her breath uneven as she pressed her forehead to Lily's soft hair, her mind spinning with fear. Every decision, every sacrifice she had made, suddenly seemed to teeter on the edge of collapse. Tonight was not just an argument, it was the start of a war she had never wanted, but one she had no choice but to fight. Emma sat on the couch with Lily curled against her, the child's tiny breaths shaky and uneven. She brushed a strand of hair from Lily's face, forcing her own voice steady. "We're safe now, sweetheart," Emma whispered, though fear clawed at her chest. The apartment felt smaller, suffocating in silence, each shadow sharper than before. The sirens had faded, but their echo lingered in Emma's head. She held Lily closer, wondering how she would protect her from a storm that was just beginning. Every muscle ached with tension, every thought spun with dread. She stared at the door Daniel had slammed, as though it were a wound carved into her home. Her life had been built piece by piece for Lily's sake, and now it threatened to unravel. She kissed Lily's forehead, her voice breaking as she promised, "I won't let anyone take you away." Sarah arrived minutes later, her face pale with worry as she stepped into the apartment. She rushed to Emma's side, placing a hand on her shoulder. "What happened?" Sarah asked, voice low but urgent. Emma shook her head, unable to answer, her throat tight. Sarah's eyes darted to Lily, asleep but restless, her small fists clenched even in dreams. "You have to be ready," Sarah said firmly, her tone laced with urgency and care. Emma finally whispered, "He's going after custody." The words left her lips like shards of glass. Sarah squeezed her shoulder, steady and unyielding. "Then we'll fight," she said. Emma's chest rose and fell, torn between despair and determination. She glanced at her daughter's face, fragile and innocent, and knew Sarah was right. The battle had already begun. Across town, Daniel slammed a whiskey glass onto his lawyer's desk, liquid spilling across papers. "I want full custody," he growled. His lawyer, a sharp-suited man, adjusted his glasses calmly, scribbling notes as though Daniel's fury was routine. The office glowed under fluorescent lights, sterile and cold. Daniel paced, fists clenching at his sides. "She doesn't deserve Lily," he spat. The lawyer nodded, speaking smoothly. "We'll build the case, but it won't be clean." Daniel smirked, his anger hardening into determination. He leaned across the desk, eyes sharp. "Do whatever it takes," he demanded. The lawyer paused, then replied, "Then you'll need to expose everything she's tried to hide." Daniel's smirk widened, satisfaction replacing rage. For him, this wasn't about Lily. It was about winning. Later that night, Emma sat alone, Lily finally asleep in her room. The apartment was silent, but Emma's thoughts screamed louder than words. She held an old photograph, her and Daniel smiling in younger days, their arms wrapped around each other. Her fingers trembled as she traced the edges, a bitter reminder of promises broken. She whispered to herself, "How did it come to this?" Tears blurred her vision, dripping onto the photo. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every job she took to keep them afloat, all of it felt like it was slipping away. She turned the photo face down, shutting out the memory. Staring at the quiet hallway, she knew the fight ahead would test everything within her. But as her eyes closed in exhaustion, her resolve hardened. She would not lose Lily. Emma opened the letter with trembling hands, her eyes scanning the cold words printed in sharp black ink. It warned of her job being at risk, citing fabricated complaints. Her breath caught and she whispered, "Daniel did this." The weight of it pressed into her chest as fear for Lily grew heavier. She thought of the bills stacked on the counter and the custody battle already looming. Her vision blurred as she pressed the paper flat on the table, knuckles whitening. "He's trying to break me," she muttered, her voice cracking. The apartment's silence wrapped around her, thick and suffocating. She forced herself to steady her breath, but doubt gnawed at her strength. Her entire world, fragile yet carefully built, was being dismantled one cruel piece at a time. Sarah sat across from Emma, her laptop open, eyes narrowed at the documents she had found. "He's pulling strings," she said, her voice sharp with anger. Emma leaned forward, her face lined with exhaustion, asking, "How much damage can he really do?" Sarah tapped the screen, exposing Daniel's manipulative network of connections. "Enough to ruin everything if we don't act fast." Emma's hands shook as she gripped her coffee mug, the steam long gone cold. Her voice was barely a whisper. "He won't stop until he takes her." Sarah's gaze softened, though her tone stayed firm. "Then we fight smarter, not just harder." Emma swallowed, the fear still clawing inside her. But Sarah's fire was a reminder she wasn't alone. Emma sat beside Lily on the bed, brushing the child's hair back as her daughter's eyes searched hers. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" Lily asked softly, her voice fragile. Emma's throat tightened, but she forced a smile. "No, sweetheart. Everything's okay." Inside, the lie twisted like a blade, but she couldn't let Lily feel the weight of her fear. Lily clutched her stuffed bear, whispering, "I don't want to lose you." Emma kissed her forehead, holding back tears. "You never will," she promised, though doubt burned her from within. The room was quiet, except for Lily's small sighs, the innocence in her eyes cutting deeper than any of Daniel's threats ever could. Emma's phone buzzed with a notification, her stomach sinking as she read the legal notice. Daniel had filed for emergency custody. Her hands shook, and the paper nearly slipped from her grasp. "He's moving faster than I thought," she whispered. The room spun, her breath shallow. She dropped into the chair, clutching her temples, the walls closing in. Every sacrifice she had made felt suddenly fragile. Hanging by a thread, Daniel was eager to cut. Sarah's earlier warnings replayed in her head, sharp and undeniable. Emma's chest heaved as she whispered to herself, "I can't lose her." Determination slowly edged out the panic, though her body trembled. The battle line had been drawn, and there was no turning back. That night, Emma dreamed of her mother, her voice echoing through the fog of memory. She saw herself as a child, clutching her mother's hand, hearing words she had nearly forgotten. "You're stronger than you know." Emma's eyes burned as the memory twisted into guilt. Her mother had given everything, and now she feared she was failing Lily. The dream shifted, her mother's face fading into darkness, leaving only the echo of her voice. Emma awoke, gasping, sweat clinging to her skin, heart pounding. She sat up, clutching her chest, whispering into the silence, "I won't make the same mistakes." The words steadied her, fragile but real, as dawn light crept into the apartment. Daniel sat with Lily in the park, his tone sweet but sharp beneath the surface. "Wouldn't you rather live with me?" he asked, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Lily's fingers clutched her doll, her gaze drifting toward the swings instead of him. She mumbled, "I like being with Mom." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he leaned closer, lowering his voice. "She's tired all the time. You'd have more fun with me." The words hung like poison, planting seeds of doubt. Lily shifted uncomfortably, her small voice trembling. "But I don't want to leave her." Daniel forced a laugh, patting her head with a heavy hand. Inside, his frustration burned, but his mask of charm remained fixed. Emma sat in the courtroom, her heart hammering as Daniel's attorney fired question after question. "Do you work late nights?" he demanded. Emma nodded reluctantly, her voice catching as she answered, "Ice, but always for Lily." The attorney pounced, his tone sharp, "So you leave her alone?" Emma's chest constricted, fury and shame clashing inside her. "Never alone," she snapped, eyes burning with restrained tears. The judge's face remained unreadable, while Daniel sat smugly at the table. Emma forced herself to steady her voice. "I've given everything to protect her." But each word felt drowned by the attorney's relentless rhythm, twisting truth into shadows. Sarah stood firm at the witness stand, her chin lifted as she glared at Daniel's attorney. "Emma is a devoted mother," she declared. The attorney sneered. "Are you suggesting my client isn't?" Sarah's jaw clenched. "I'm saying he's manipulative." Daniel's eyes narrowed, his smirk fading. Emma felt a surge of gratitude mixed with dread, knowing Sarah's honesty came at a price. The lawyer tried to rattle her, firing questions with venom, but Sarah's voice never cracked. "She's sacrificed everything for Lily. That's the truth." Emma blinked back tears, her best friend's loyalty shining like a shield in the storm. Later that night, Emma sat across from Michael in a quiet cafe, the low hum of voices surrounding them. "You don't know what you're walking into," she said, her hands curled around a steaming cup. Michael leaned forward, his dark eyes steady. "I just want to help." Emma studied him, her heart tugging between suspicion and the warmth in his voice. "I can't afford distractions," she whispered. Michael smiled gently, his tone soft but certain. "Sometimes help isn't a distraction, it's survival." Emma's chest tightened, emotions stirring she had long buried, the possibility of trust flickering in her heart. Daniel stood in his apartment, staring out the window with a glass of whiskey in hand, the city lights flickering below. He replayed the day's events in his mind, Sarah's testimony gnawing at his confidence. But as the burn of the liquor spread, his smirk returned. "She won't win," he muttered. His reflection in the glass stared back, hard and unrelenting. He had always gotten what he wanted, and this would be no different. In his mind, it wasn't about Lily's well-being. It was about control, about breaking Emma until nothing remained. He lifted the glass in a silent toast to his own victory, his resolve sharp as steel. Emma returned home late, exhaustion pulling at her shoulders, when she noticed an unmarked envelope on the floor. She hesitated, then tore it open, her pulse quickening as she read the words scrawled inside. The letter spoke of secrets, of choices made long ago that Daniel was now uncovering. Her stomach twisted, the paper trembling in her grip. "Who sent this?" she whispered, her voice echoing in the silence. Every line was sharp as a blade, promising that the past she had buried was clawing its way back. Emma pressed the letter to the table, her breath shallow. It was no longer just about Daniel's lies. Someone else wanted to see her broken. Emma sat by the window, her eyes unfocused, as memories forced their way into her mind. She was a child again, clutching a small suitcase as her father walked out the door without looking back. His voice still rang in her ears, cold and final. "You'll be fine without me." She remembered the sting of abandonment, her mother's tears staining the night. Now, staring at Lily's toys scattered across the floor, Emma felt the same fear clawing at her chest. The cycle threatened to repeat, and it terrified her. She pressed her forehead to the glass, whispering, "I won't let it happen to her." At the courthouse library, Emma's hands shook as she opened a folder Daniel's lawyer had filed. Inside were documents twisted to paint her as unstable, some drawn from her painful past. "He's using everything against me," she muttered, tears stinging her eyes. She gripped the edge of the table, fury rising beneath her fear. The air felt cold, sterile, unforgiving, the fluorescent lights glaring above her. Emma's heart pounded as she whispered to herself, "I won't let him win like this." The weight of shame pressed heavy, but beneath it, her resolve began to harden into something unbreakable. Sarah paced Emma's apartment, her voice low but sharp. "Someone close to you has been feeding him information." Emma froze, her breath catching. "Who?" she demanded, her voice trembling with fear. Sarah shook her head, frustration etched in her features. "I don't know, but it's someone who knows things only family would." Emma sank into the couch, her hands pressing against her knees, her mind racing. Betrayal felt like a second skin now, suffocating and familiar. Sarah placed a hand on her shoulder. "You need to be ready. This isn't just Daniel anymore. It's bigger." Emma's eyes hardened as she whispered, "Then I'll fight harder." Emma sat on the bathroom floor, knees drawn to her chest, the sound of dripping water echoing in the silence. Her body trembled, as if the world were pressing down on her shoulders. The betrayal, the secrets, the fear of losing Lily, it all blurred into one unbearable weight. Tears streamed down her face, her breath shallow and ragged. "I can't do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. Yet as the words left her lips, she caught sight of a small crayon drawing Lily had left taped to the mirror, the two of them holding hands, smiling. Emma reached for it, her fingers brushing the paper, her heart steadying. "Yes, I can," she whispered, fragile but determined. Emma opened the apartment door, her eyes widening at the man standing there. He was older now, rougher around the edges, but unmistakable. "Jacob," she whispered, her voice breaking. Her brother, the one she hadn't seen in years, stood silently with guilt written in his eyes. He shifted awkwardly before saying, "I heard what's happening. I couldn't stay away." Emma's heart pounded, anger and longing colliding in a storm of confusion. "Why now?" she demanded, her voice sharp. Jacob lowered his gaze, murmuring, "Because this time you can't face it alone." The air between them was heavy, filled with years of silence, regret, and a fragile spark of hope. Inside, the tension was suffocating. Emma crossed her arms, her eyes sharp. "You abandoned me when I needed you most," she hissed. Jacob flinched, his voice low. "I know, and I've regretted it every day." Emma shook her head, pacing across the room. Lily peeked from behind the hallway door, curiosity in her eyes. Jacob noticed her and whispered, "She looks just like you did at her age." Emma's chest tightened, torn between rage and longing. "You don't get to walk back into my life and pretend nothing happened," she snapped. Jacob's voice trembled as he answered, "I'm not pretending. I'm here because I can finally make it right." Jacob laid a folder on the table, his voice steady for the first time. "Daniel's been hiding money. Accounts offshore, under false names. I can prove it." Emma froze, staring at the documents spread before her. The pages were filled with numbers and signatures that could unravel everything Daniel had built. "Where did you get this?" she demanded. Jacob's eyes darkened. "I've been watching him longer than you think." Emma's breath caught, suspicion gnawing at her trust. "Why would you keep this from me?" Jacob leaned forward, his voice low but fierce. "Because timing matters, and now is the time to use it." The conversation spiraled into old wounds. Emma's voice shook as she shouted, "You weren't there when Mom died. You left me to handle everything." Jacob's face twisted in pain, his fists clenching at his sides. "I know, and it kills me every day," he said, his voice raw. Emma's tears streamed freely, her anger and grief crashing like waves. Lily's quiet footsteps echoed as she retreated to her room, sensing the storm. Jacob stepped closer, his tone softer. "I can't erase the past, Emma, but I can help you now." Emma's chest rose and fell, her silence heavy with a mix of doubt and the faintest thread of forgiveness. Emma sat alone at the table, Jacob's documents spread before her like weapons waiting to be used. Her fingers brushed across the signatures, each one proof of Daniel's deception. She whispered to herself, "This could save us, or destroy us." Jacob stood by the window, his shadow long in the lamplight. "If you use it, you'll expose him, but you'll also expose yourself to everything he'll throw back." Emma's jaw tightened as her resolve built. She glanced toward Lily's closed bedroom door, her face softening. "Then I'll take that risk," she said firmly, "because she's worth everything." The courtroom was heavy with silence as Emma took her seat, her pulse racing. Daniel's attorney rose, his voice sharp as a blade. "Is it true you often leave your child while working late?" he asked. Emma's throat tightened, but she steadied her voice. "I work to provide for her. She's never been left without care." The lawyer pressed on, circling like a predator. "And yet you expect us to believe you can give stability?" Emma's palms burned as she gripped the table. Her heart screamed to shout back, but she forced her tone calm. "Lily is my world. I've never failed her, and I never will." Daniel leaned back, smug, as the attorney smirked. Sarah stepped into the witness stand, her chin lifted with fierce determination. "Emma is a devoted mother," she said clearly, her voice ringing in the room. Daniel's attorney narrowed his eyes, challenging. "Are you claiming my client is unfit?" Sarah leaned forward, her voice sharp. "I'm saying he's manipulative, and his games put Lily at risk." Emma's chest swelled with gratitude as Daniel's smugness faltered for the first time. The judge scribbled notes, her face unreadable, while the tension in the air thickened. Sarah's words cut through the storm, her loyalty burning like a torch in Emma's darkest hour. Michael rose from the gallery, offering himself as a character witness. His steady voice filled the silence. "Emma is not just a good mother, she's an extraordinary one," he said firmly. Daniel's attorney sneered. "And what are you to her?" Michael's gaze never faltered. "A friend, someone who has seen the sacrifices she makes daily." Emma's breath caught, emotion tightening her throat. His words wrapped around her like a shield. For a moment, Daniel's power seemed to waver, his control slipping as truth seeped into the cracks. The courtroom shifted, hope stirring in Emma's chest. Jacob entered the courtroom with a folder clutched in his hand, his expression grim. "Your Honor," he began, "I have evidence of Daniel's hidden accounts." Gasps rippled across the room as he laid the documents before the judge. Daniel's face drained of color, his composure cracking for the first time. "That's a lie!" he shouted, but his voice shook with panic. Emma's heart pounded, watching her estranged brother stand strong for her. The judge raised a brow, flipping through the pages. Daniel's attorney scrambled, his words faltering. In that moment, the tide shifted. Truth was no longer Daniel's weapon. It was Emma's. Finally, Emma stood, her voice trembling at first, then gaining strength. "I have worked every day of my life for my daughter," she said, her words steady as she looked at the judge. "She is not a burden. She is my purpose." Daniel's glare bored into her, but she did not falter. "I've been judged, betrayed, and dragged through every lie imaginable, but my love for Lily has never broken." Her eyes glistened as she turned briefly toward her child. "She deserves safety, stability, and love, and that's what I will always give her." The silence after her words felt endless, but in that stillness, the truth shone like fire. The courtroom buzzed with hushed voices as the judge cleared her throat. Emma's hands shook beneath the table, her heart slamming in her chest. After reviewing the evidence, the judge said firmly, "Custody is awarded to Emma Williams." For a moment, silence filled the room, heavy and unreal. Emma's breath caught, her body trembling as relief crashed over her. She pressed a hand to her lips, holding back tears, while Lily squeezed her small hand tightly. Emma whispered, "We did it, sweetheart." The world outside the words seemed to fade, leaving only the sound of her daughter's breathing and the weight of victory that felt both beautiful and unbearably heavy. Daniel's chair screeched across the floor as he stood, his face twisted with fury. "This isn't over," he shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. The bailiff stepped forward, steady and watchful, while the judge's gavel cracked against the wood. Emma turned toward him, her eyes filled not with fear, but with quiet defiance. She no longer saw the man she once loved. She saw only a broken reflection of the past. Daniel stormed out, his steps heavy, his shadow retreating into nothing. For the first time in years, Emma felt the air in her lungs expand with freedom. Lily clung to her side, whispering, "Mommy, are we safe now?" Emma nodded softly, her voice steady. "Yes, baby, we're safe." Outside the courthouse, the sunlight felt blinding after the storm of the trial. Emma knelt, pulling Lily into her arms, both of them crying freely as people passed by unnoticed. Lily's tiny voice broke through the sobs. "We don't have to leave each other, right?" Emma kissed her daughter's forehead, whispering, "Never. I'll always be with you." The crowd blurred, the world fading as mother and daughter clung to one another. Sarah stood nearby, her own tears glistening, pride etched across her face. Jacob lingered in the background, watching quietly, guilt and redemption battling in his eyes. Emma held Lily tighter, feeling the weight lift at last, replaced by fragile hope. That evening, the apartment was quiet, shadows stretching long in the golden dusk light. Emma sat at the kitchen table, the pile of documents and memories scattered before her. She reached for the photograph of her younger self with Daniel, their smiles frozen in time. With steady hands, she placed it face down and slid it aside. Her eyes softened as she glanced at Lily's drawings taped to the fridge, bright colors, simple shapes, pure love. Emma whispered, "This is what matters." The scars inside her ached, but they no longer defined her. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe in tomorrow. Night fell, the city humming softly beyond the apartment windows. Emma stood at Lily's bedroom door, her hand resting gently on the wood, listening to her daughter's steady breathing. She stepped inside, sitting quietly at the edge of the bed, watching Lily's peaceful face. A smile broke across Emma's lips, real and unguarded for the first time in years. She brushed back a strand of Lily's hair and whispered, "We're stronger now, and we'll never stop fighting." Her chest rose with a quiet sigh, the weight of the past easing at last. In that stillness, in that small room, the future began, fragile but full of hope.